Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar entitled Mindfulness for Healthy Eating. My name is Nikita and I'll be your host for today. So before we begin, let me just remind you you're all on silent mode throughout this session. So just in case you want to ask any questions, you can use the question box or alternatively raise your hand so that we can unmute and you can ask questions. And this webinar is being recorded and it would be uploaded to your EAP website as soon as possible. So let me hand you over to our presenter for today, Miss Alice Tatton. Alice, over to you.
Thanks, Nikita, and thanks to everybody for joining today, this webinar on mindfulness for healthy eating. And I was thinking as I was getting ready for the webinar today, there's probably no better time than the holiday season that's coming up, where there'll be lots of opportunities to eat and to be able to continue to think about our eating, to be aware of what we're eating, and to in some cases perhaps control or moderate our eating as well. So congratulations to you for thinking about this at this time of year where there'll be lots more temptation. The other thing that always occurs to me is that we all, I think, or most of us, understand the significance of meditation or mindfulness for things like dealing with stress, working through feelings of mental illness, mental wellness, anxiety, feelings of depression, that sort of thing. But we don't often think about mindfulness in this idea of meditation relative to how we're eating as well. So some of you may be quite familiar with some of the things that I am going to talk about today around mindfulness, but you may perhaps have not thought about applying them in this context of healthy eating. So hopefully I'll help you to understand this idea of what's called mindful or conscious eating. Think about how you can become more conscious about how you're feeding yourself, and let's talk a little bit about what is the benefit of being more mindful around our eating and around the food that we're consuming. And it's always focused on this concept, as is shown at the bottom here. Are we mindful? So on automatic pilot, like it shows on the left-hand side, they're so full of everything that just clouds all our thinking and our decision-making and our rational thought, and really consumed with all of those things? Or are we mindful, which means we have the ability to be in the moment, to be thinking about the things that are happening in the moment that we're in right now, and to think about how can we use that idea of being mindful to improving the health of our eating habits. So what is this idea of mindful eating? I suspect it's probably still true. I know that a few years ago, diet, nutrition, weight loss was one of the most searched terms on the internet, that people were always looking for ways to lose weight, control weight, eat healthier food, that this was a consuming passion of so many people. And now we begin to think about this idea of being more mindful about the choices that we're making and the experiences that we're having with food. So it's this concept that we really focus in, this idea of conscious eating, is that we focus in on both what we think and feel from an emotional perspective that takes place before, during, and after the act of eating. Culturally, the act of breaking bread together, the act of eating together, has huge significance in many cultures. And it is far more than just, consuming food so that we can continue on with the rest of our day. But the way in which we've been living our lives lately, the number of stresses and activities and the lack of time that we have, eating has become just a bit of a routine, something that happens at a certain point in the day because we know we should. And we have lost our ability to pay attention to how we feel around our eating, and what our sensations are and what we're thinking around eating. And, not only by regaining that can we help ourselves around the idea of being mindful, but when we are in tune with what we're putting in our body, why we're doing it, it does help us to develop the ability to be able to more carefully adjust what we eat in the needs to our body, and to really be in tune with the needs of our body versus just the habit of having something to eat. It also helps us to remember that food is meant to be a pleasant experience, and that when we have the opportunity to experience food that's new to us, food perhaps that we enjoy, or perhaps eat food with people that have a great relationship to us, or perhaps even to enjoy a special meal out in a restaurant or at someone else's home, that there are a lot of pleasant moments related to that food. And it's not just about what we put in our mouths, what we chew and what we swallow, that there are all kinds of other sensations around that, that if we focus in on be truly mindful, we will experience food in a whole new way. And by experiencing food in a whole new way, we also begin to think more carefully about what we eat. So what does it mean? It means things like paying attention to our natural hunger signals. Our body tells us when it's hungry and when it's thirsty. And the problem with that is that when we are experiencing great amounts of stress, sometimes our body begins to send us signals that might be suggesting to us that we want to eat without the associated hunger that tells us that we need to eat. And often in those circumstances, not only then are we looking to fill that need, we're looking to fill that need quickly. And so that's where we will begin to look for things that we can access as quickly as possible. We're feeling stressed, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're driving along, we know we've got good healthy food at home to eat, but gee, there's a drive-through, and could we just pull off, grab something that's already prepared for us and eat that and be done with it before we get home? And under stress, our body will make us think that we should prefer that over the preference of going home and eating something that's nutritious for us, that's actually meeting our bodily needs. And so in that circumstance as well, we're likely eating not because we truly are starving, that we truly do need sustenance in our body. It's probably more likely because we're nervous or anxious, or in some cases, just simply bored. And when we begin to tune into this ability to adjust to the needs of our body, we begin to think about things like the speed at which we eat. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things to keep in mind if you are trying to become more mindful, so you're thinking more about eating in response to my body's needs, not its wants, is it can take up to 15 to 20 minutes for our body to register it's full. And so if you think about your typical meal, you sit down, you eat, perhaps you have some sort of appetizer or salad or something, and that maybe takes you, maybe 5 minutes at the most. And then you have a main course, and, unless you're consciously slowing yourself down and consciously paying attention, that probably takes you maybe another 10 minutes. So now here we are, having consumed a fair amount of food, and we're at that roughly 15-minute mark. It can take our body between 15 and 20 minutes to register that it's full. So even though that amount of food that we've just taken in might be the amount that we actually needed, our body isn't able to give us the signal that it's full for about another 5 or so minutes. So guess what happens in that time frame? Somebody suggests you want dessert, and you're not registering full yet. So you say, sure, bring it on. And you have a dessert. And then what happens, I think we've all experienced this, you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I'm too full. How did I ever get to this point of being too full? Because you didn't give your body a chance to be able to tell you that it was full. You just continued to eat. So one of the things, of course, is thinking about the speed at which we eat. And then we think about savoring our food, which is, about chewing our food, not gobbling our food down. Now, I will be the first one to admit I'm an incredibly fast eater. I'm not sure why. I get called out on it all the time, as I rightly should, by my family. I am an incredibly quick eater. And so I employ strategies to make myself slow down. Things like putting my fork down in between bites. Things like where there is food to be cut up, cutting it up into incredibly small pieces so that it takes me more time to move that food to my mouth, because I really need to stop gobbling my food down and begin to enjoy the flavor, the texture, the spices, perhaps the temperature of the food that I'm eating. But if I'm just gobbling it in and eating as quickly as I do, if I don't consciously think about it, then I'm not experiencing the fullness of this activity called eating. And of course, the quicker I'm putting food in my mouth, then the more likely it is that the food will reach my stomach without very much chewing. And then there is an awful lot more effort that my stomach needs to do to digest this food. And a lot of energy gets used in that process. My digestion slows down and becomes heavier because my food needs to sit in my stomach longer because I really haven't given it to my stomach in a way in which it can easily digest. So that strategy of cutting into small pieces really helps with this piece around being more mindful. Not only does it slow me down, and help me to enjoy my food more, it also helps me to produce food or introduce food, let me say, to my stomach in a way that's easier for it to digest. And of course, if we're gobbling all that food in, if we're taking large swallows, all of those things, we're swallowing air. And that air has nowhere to go but either down and through, which causes gas and abdominal pain, or back up perhaps in the form of burping or indigestion. And where we're not aware of and we're not paying attention, we can consume up to 3,000 calories at a meal that we don't even need. 3,000 calories that we don't even need. Now we gain a pound of body fat for every 2,400 calories that we eat that are more than we need. So yeah, we need calories. We need a certain amount of calories in our body for all the things we need to do, the movements that we need to do, just the activities of daily living, our work, all of those things, any other activities we might be involved in. But it is very possible that if we are not paying attention to what we eat without even thinking about it, we're getting up to 3,000 more calories at each meal than we need. Each meal, 3 meals a day, 900 calories. 2,400 is an extra pound of fat. If we were to continue to do this and to continue to consume all these extra calories, about every 3 days, we would actually be having a pound of fat that we don't need. So we need to think about, just by becoming aware of what we're putting in our mouths, can we begin to bring to our body what it needs versus just the activity of eating. And so how do we do that? Well, we ask ourselves some questions. Just like anytime we want to slow ourselves down, anytime we want to learn something new, anytime we're curious about something, we need to become more mindful and aware of what it is. So when I'm learning a new skill, I have to ask a lot more questions. I have to gather a lot more information. If I'm trying to learn this new skill of being more mindful when I eat, those same ideas of asking questions come into play. So the first thing we want to ask ourselves is, why am I eating? Am I eating because I think I should? I'll give you an example. I grew up in a family where dinner time, I grew up in a farming family. Dinner time was 5 o'clock on the nose each and every night, 7 days of the week. 5 o'clock, we sat down at the table and we ate dinner. It took me 2 years of being away at school to stop automatically eating at 5 o'clock at night. 5 o'clock would come and I would be like an alarm bell went off. Oh, time to eat. Now I might have had lunch at 3. It didn't matter. I was in such a habit of eating at 5 o'clock. I had to resist 5 o'clock every night because I felt like I needed to eat then again. So why am I eating? Am I hungry? Do I need to eat right now? Or am I stressed or emotional and I want to eat right now? Am I using food as a form of reward right now? And what, is that an appropriate thing to do right now? When do I eat? When do I want to eat? It's somewhat related to the more previous question. Do I think about, I really want to have a cookie in the afternoon? Well, why? When do I want to eat that in the afternoon? Why? Because I'm starting to feel tired? Well, maybe I just need to take a break from my work for a while. What is it that's triggering me to want to eat right now? Am I hungry? Or would I be better served to just walk away from the computer for a little bit Maybe go outside, get a breath of fresh air, read a couple of pages in a book I'm enjoying. Maybe there's something else that I want to do right now. And then what do I want to eat? Again, what do I eat on a typical day? Some people find one of the easiest ways to get a hold of what they're eating is to write it all down. And sometimes they're quite surprised by the end of the day looking back at what they eat. And it includes everything from, the single cookie that you put in your mouth, a couple of nuts that you grab in the afternoon, the extra chocolate maybe that you have at night. Write it all down. Because sometimes when you do that and you look back on it, you're quite surprised by how much you actually eat in a day. How do you eat? Now, let me ask you this question. Think back to the last meal you had. I'm going to think back to my lunch today. Could I write an article about all the aspects of my lunch that I had today? Could I talk about all the ingredients in my salad? Could I rate my salad today? Was it a better salad than yesterday's? Was there anything missing in my salad today? Is there anything I might not want to put in my salad tomorrow? I ask myself, would I be able to write an article about that? Or did I eat my salad? Remember, I'm the fast eater. So fast and in front of my computer that even as I'm giving you this example, I'm thinking, was today a good salad or a bad salad or a better salad? Because I don't know, because I ate it fast and I ate it at my desk. So I need to think about how I ate. And how much do you eat? This is one that people are pretty aware of, right? But I always recall to my parents decided as they aged that they were going to eat less. And so they got smaller plates because they thought that would make them eat less. Well, you know what happens sometimes with smaller plates? You just fill them up twice. And that's what they were doing because they weren't consciously thinking about how much they were eating. I guess the plate was a bit of a visual reminder, but it really wasn't achieving the point of this, which is slow down enough so that you can tell, are you full or not? Give yourself that 15 to 20 minutes to decide, do I need any more or do I want any more? And then, of course, part of eating is, our calories in, what we eat, our calories out, how we move. So how physically active am I? Where do I invest my energy? Could I begin to consume some more, perhaps, of these extra calories that I'm taking in by being more physically active? And so by slowing ourselves down, thinking about why am I eating? Do I need to eat right now? What am I eating? How am I eating it? How fast am I eating it? Am I enjoying it? How much am I eating? And how does this fit with the amount of physical activity I've had? You can see I just went through that whole question cycle in about 15 seconds. It doesn't have to take a long period of time. It just means that, like in every other aspect of our life where we want to become more mindful, we need to stop and pay attention. And that's what this is really all about. So let me lead you through a little guided activity here. And there is a YouTube video on this that you will see on the next slide that you can click into. But if you just Google the raisin meditation, you will find this on YouTube, and it's quite fascinating. It was actually done a number of years ago. So if you have something that you could eat near you right now, I ask you to pick up whatever that might be. The example on YouTube uses a raisin. If you don't have something that you could actually eat, then what I ask you to do is to pick up something and pretend it is something that you might eat, but I'm not going to ask you to put it in your mouth. So let's pretend that what you have in your hand right now is something that you are going to eat. So before we even start to think about either that real thing, I'm going to continue to refer to it now as a raisin, even though it may not be a raisin. Before we even begin to think about the raisin, let's focus in for a moment. Let's come into this moment in time and focus on our breathing. So when we focus on our breathing, we think about how the air comes in, how that feels on our inhale. We feel it go down into our lungs, into our abdomen, and how it swells. And we feel that breath coming back up out of our body, either out through our nose or out through our mouth. And I don't want you to change anything about your breathing right now. I just want you to be aware of it and take a few breaths where all you think about is the sensation of that air coming in, filling your body, and then coming back out again. So just continue that very conscious attention to your breath. And I want you to look at your raisin. And I want you to look at it like you've never ever seen a raisin before. I want you to turn it around in your hands. I want you to, if you can, if you've got a light, put it under the light. Does it look any different under the light as opposed to in front of you? Look at the shape of it. You can see that it has grooves. You can see it's got different parts that stick out. It's probably a dark color. It's black or brown, but maybe if you look at it under the light again, maybe it's a little bit of dark purple. As you turn it around, you see that those grooves and protrusions look different aspects of it. You turn it all around in your hand and really have a good look at it. You see the stem perhaps coming out of one side. You can see how it may have grown as it was as a bunch of grapes. And now I want you to bring that raisin to your nose and to smell it. What does it smell like? It smells like a raisin. Maybe that's what you want to say. Maybe it has a bit of a grape, perhaps a wine smell a little bit. Remember, that's how wine is made. Just really experience the smell of that raisin. And now I want you to do something that might seem a little bit silly. I want you to take that raisin up to your ear and I want you to listen to that raisin. Now the raisin's not going to say anything to you. No, it's not. But I want you to just squish it around a little bit. Squeeze it. Does it make a crackly sound? Do you hear anything from that raisin as you move it around? And then I want you to bring it back down. Have another look at it in both hands. Turn it all around. And the next step is to put it in your mouth. But go slowly with this. If you're a fast eater like me, the instant that raisin goes in your mouth, you're going to want to chew it and swallow it. Resist. And if you don't actually have a raisin, obviously don't put what you have in your mouth. But put that raisin in your mouth. Don't chew it, but just move it around to start with. Move it towards the front of your mouth, towards your lips. Put it on your tongue. Roll it side to side in your mouth. What's the texture? What does it feel like? Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it moist? Is it dry? And now you'll begin to have a taste. What does it taste like? Let it go through different parts of your mouth. Does the taste change from one part of your mouth to another? Put it out in your cheeks. Does the taste change? And now begin to chew it, but multiple times. You're wanting to swallow it. I know you are. Chew it slowly. Savor each and every bite. Think about how it feels different each time you bite down on it. Think about the flavor that's being released. Think about the texture. Maybe there is some noise from chewing it. The flavor may change. Think about all of that. And now slowly, slowly, slowly swallow it. But feel it as it moves down your throat and imagine it down your throat, through your pharynx, down the esophagus, and into your stomach. And continue to do that with another and another and another raisin. Your ability to be able to focus in and control yourself to be able to fully experience that raisin is raisin meditation. Now, the next thing, when you pick up another raisin, you might begin to think even a bit more broadly about it. I wonder where this raisin was growing. I wonder how it grew. Think about the soil that it took to grow that raisin. Think about the sunlight that it took in order for it to grow. The water, how influential the weather was. The farmer who harvested that raisin. begin to have the full experience of that raisin so that you can begin to appreciate all of what it is about what you're putting in your mouth. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to do this about every mouthful that you put in, everything that you put into your mouth. You know, if you were in a restaurant, it would take you most of the day to have a meal. But the point that I'm trying to make is if you can begin to get this idea of savoring, this idea of really appreciating and paying attention to what you put in your mouth, each and every spoonful you put in your mouth or forkful, you will begin to practice and teach yourself this idea of becoming fully immersed and mindful about what you're eating. And as you become more mindful, a number of things will begin to happen. You will begin to slow down your eating. You will begin to appreciate flavor in food and think more. Those questions that you want to ask yourself about why you're eating, when you're eating, what you're eating, how you're eating, you haven't got time to ask those in the way in which you're consuming food right now. But if you begin to sit down and think about this mindful practice, you'll begin to be able to understand more about the reasons behind your eating, what you're eating, and you'll be able to make more critically important choices about who, what, where, why, and how you're eating. So here's your challenge. Choose one meal to eat mindfully. And maybe you even need to start with one part of your meal to eat mindfully. Maybe if you're a coffee drinker in the morning, you just think mindfully about your coffee. Smell it. Feel the heat in your hands. Circle it around a little bit in your cup. Put it under the light. See the colors. Is it light? Is it dark? Feel the heat in your hands. Move it around a little bit. See what happens when you stir it up a little bit. And then take it into your mouth, but don't instantly swallow it. And this is incredibly hard when it's a liquid, of course, because you automatically just want to swallow. Chew it for a little bit. Slow yourself down. Many of us say that we can't start our day without coffee, and yet we probably take less than 2 minutes to drink it from top to bottom, unless it's too hot. Imagine the mindful opportunities that we're missing in that ability to just begin to appreciate that coffee. Maybe it's your whole breakfast. Maybe it's lunch. Maybe it's a piece of your lunch. Maybe it's a snack you have in the afternoon. Find one thing each day to eat mindfully. And these two videos that are on the screen here can help you with that process. The second is the full raisin meditation, which the full meditation takes 12 minutes. 12 minutes to eat 2 raisins, but you'll be incredibly changed by the process that you go through. So if you have any questions about, a short little session today just to think about this idea of being more mindful on our eating, I want to point out to you as you're thinking about any questions you may have, the resources that are available to you through your employee assistance program. These are always available to you, to whether it's telephone counseling, whether it's seminars, whether it's referrals or financial services, whatever it may be. You have your toll-free number, you have your website, you have your username and your password to be able to access this information. And lots more information in there about meditation, healthy eating, all of those things. And as you're formulating your questions in that question box, I'm going to turn it back to Nikita so that she can talk about the little bit of a survey that we ask you to complete. But please, if you have any questions, do put them in that question box, and I'll be happy to answer them for you before we sign off for today.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, Alice. And as you truly said, it's a needed session before the holidays because we might end up eating more and find our health in a bit difficult ways. So yes, thank you for this wonderful session. And here we have an anonymous feedback. Okay, we just want to know how the session went, what needs to be improved, what was well. Okay, so please take this feedback, scan the QR code with your phone and it would ask you for your slot ID, which is 150639, and the trainer name is Alice Strachan. So kindly give your feedback so that we could improve our services and give a better services for you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Alice.
Good luck, everybody.